days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I want to talk about offensive players on the bubble because there's going to be lots of competition going on at training camp. And getting to this roster, we've already went through who are going to be the locks and who are not. If you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it, where I go through the locks to make this football team and then the spots that are kind of up for grabs. And as you go through the process of evaluating the roster and you see how many locks are on this team, well, then you know kind of who's on the bubble. There are different types of players on this roster. Some of these guys, yeah, they're in competition, but they're on the outside looking in. Then there's other players who are right in the thick of things. One thing goes right their way, and they could go from being maybe on the outside looking in to on this 53-man roster. And of course, the 49ers are trying to build the most competitive football team they possibly can. And with that comes competition. Now, the offensive side of the football was a lot different than the defensive side of the football because a lot of investment happened in the defensive side of the ball, whether that was free agency or with draft capital, and they needed to. So many players left the defensive side of the ball. But when you look at offense, they didn't lose players in the same way. Yes, Aaron Banks got a huge contract and went to Green Bay, so you had to hold a fill at left guard. Yes, Eric Saubert has moved on, and you needed to find a new tight end. Could that be one of the young guys you already have? Could that be Ross Dwelley? Yes. And then you had to kind of fill in some depth here and there. Backup quarterback where two guys moved on, and I think the 49ers were moving on. So there are new additions to this football team, but the offensive side of the ball is vastly different than defense because there's a lot of starters who are returning. And with that comes continuity. So there's less options for these players that are trying to make the team, less spots up for grabs on offense compared to defense. Now, there are going to be some really good competition when you're talking about depth on O-line or even that left guard spot. I know right now it's presumed that Ben Barch, and I'm in agreement with that Ben Barch is right now the presumed starter, but there's still competition all over the offensive line. And just last year, Dominic Pooney went from third on the depth chart entering training camp to the starter in just a week because of situation. Feliciano goes down with a knee injury. He's not able to start training camp. Spencer Burford's going to step in, reclaim his spot at right guard. No, he breaks his hand. Now he's working on a side field, and Dominic Pooney's getting those snaps. And once Dominic Pooney got those snaps, he never looked back. He was very consistent. He was very good. So opportunity will come to those who are available. But taking a look at this roster and figuring out who the bubble players are going to get us a real good idea of how our focus should be through training camp, watching key players, and if they're going to be able to make this team. But also preseason. It makes preseason games so much more enjoyable when you know who's battling for a spot. And it's easy to say, yeah, all the guys are battling for a spot, which isn't wrong. But there are guys that are closer, that have maybe 1 foot in and 1 foot out compared to others. But also, what about the guys who have made this roster before that might not make it now? Every single year, there is a surprise cut as the 49ers work through who they're going to keep on this team and the roster building portion of how they're going to make things happen. So that's what we're going through in this episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network. Of course, it's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you feel like I deserve it, give it a 5-star rating. It goes a long way to help, put the content out there. It helps me a lot, so I really appreciate it. And if you are going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC, to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Bet online, the game starts here. And there are some positions for the 49ers that have some question marks or have maybe some starting roles that are up for grabs. And those are the positions I'm going to start with today when talking about bubble players. I'm going to start with wide receiver because wide receiver is very interesting for this 49ers team moving into training camp. Of course, you have Brandon Ayuk, who's dealing with an injury. We know the ACL injury was pretty significant, and there was a lot of knee damage there. He did more than the ACL, in fact. So the recovery time is going to push into the season. Now, John Lynch has come out and said, hey, Brandon Ayuk is moving in the right direction. But with that becomes an opportunity for a player that would normally be on the bubble to potentially make this football team. Same thing with Demarcus Robinson. Now, he's not injured, but there is a impending potential suspension. And we keep talking about this, and I don't know if it's a foregone conclusion or not. Matt Miyoko came out, about a month ago and said, hey, he's going to be suspended 3 games. So far, nothing from the league. Crickets on what's going to happen with Demarcus Robinson. I don't know how the 49ers are operating. So right now, I just keep, kind of him in that period of, is he going to make the team? Is he not going to make the team? And so we just don't know as far as, take it back. He's going to make the team. But if he's going to be on the opening day 53-man roster or on the league's exempt list, that's going to be the question mark for Demarcus Robinson. So we knew that the locks, Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins, the new drafted player for the 49ers, a 4th round pick, we're all going to be locks on this football team. The guys after that is where you start getting the question mark. They drafted Junior Bergen in the 7th round, and we know that they're high on him, especially when it comes to his kick return and punt return ability. This is a Brant Boyer special, a guy that he put eyes on consistently because he was his former son's teammate. And so you've got a guy he's watched a lot. So Junior Bergen is a guy that we have to talk about. Same with Isaiah Nair, Isaiah Hodgins, Russell Gage, and Tariq Owens. There is another wide receiver on this football team, Malik Knowles. Now, how much of a chance does Malik Knowles have to make this team? I kind of see him on the outside looking in. And I know that he's got some talent. He's been on some practice squads in the NFL over the last couple of years. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got athleticism. I just don't think right now he's going to have a chance to make this team with some of the guys that are ahead of him. So let's talk about those guys who are on the bubble that are really competing for what could be a 5th spot at wide receiver, especially with Demarcus Robinson and Brandon Ayuk potentially starting the season either on an exempt list or the PUP list. There's an opportunity. Now, Isaiah Hodgins, they brought in during the offseason. Now, he came in like right after the season was over, and this one actually got a lot of 49er fans talking. Hodgins has played in the league for a little while, had success with the New York Giants, and this is a big body receiver that can compete over the middle of the field and make some clutch catches. So he's a guy that's very intriguing. But when he came into the San Francisco 49ers football team, this roster looked different because they've added during the offseason. They added a guy that was going to be a potential X receiver in Jordan Watkins. So they brought in speed when it came to the draft. And whenever that happens, it kind of pushes guys and their opportunities down. So you've got Pearsall, you've got Jennings, you've got Cowing, you've got Watkins, and you need that other guy. Now, Hodgins, too many Isaiahs. Hodgins is a guy that's physical. He can block. He's a guy that runs pretty good routes over the middle of the field, so he could compete. So he is an option to make this football team. So I can't write him off. I don't think he's on the outside looking in. I think he's right on the bubble for the San Francisco 49ers. Same with the Isaiah that I just brought up, Nair. Now, Isaiah Nair is interesting because he's an undrafted free agent. But the 49ers are super high on him. And why are they super high on him? Because he's 6'4", 220 pounds. Anytime you say that combined with a 4.4 speed, you know you've got an elite athlete with elite size. So this is a guy that doesn't come along very often. But there's a lot of things in his game that still needs to get better. He needs to develop his hands. Right now, he drops footballs at times. This is a guy that needs to get used to playing the NFL game. Hasn't really showed up and showed out the way I think that they were all hoping. Now, injuries at Texas prevented him from potentially being a big-time player. But they are super high on the potential that he has. And we've seen moments from him during OTAs, during rookie minicamp, that he's went out and made some plays. He looks the part, that is for sure. They're going to take a long look at Isaiah Nair because they really don't have another player on the team that's like him. Because you have Jawan Jennings, who is a big body receiver, but he's 6'2" and he runs a 4.7. And that's no slight on Jawan Jennings. He gets in and out of his breaks really well. He creates separation far better than he should with his athleticism, but he just knows how to do it. He's just really good at it. But Nair's a different type of player. Even though he's a big physical specimen, he doesn't exactly play the most physical like Jawan Jennings. This guy's a guy that likes to get straight line speed, get down, vertical, and make some plays down the field. You throw in the fact that he's got, close to a 40-inch vertical leap. He can go up and he can get the football. He's got a really big wingspan. So you've got opportunity for Nair to be a deep ball threat with the size to be able to go up and get the football. This guy, size-wise, is kind of more in line with the Julio Jones and those type of guys, these big body receivers that we know Kyle Shanahan has had success with in the past. But he's on the bubble because of the development that he needs to display, the hands, right? Getting in and out of his breaks on his routes, being a consistent route runner and a consistent catcher of the football, doing a little bit better with contact, staying up on his feet and getting yards after the catch. So there's development that needs to go into Nair. That's why he's on the bubble. Now, he's got an advantage over a lot of guys is that he's 6'4", 220 with a 4.4 speed. That athleticism is going to show up at times. Now, can he make enough consistent plays during training camp and preseason to catch the 49ers' attention? I think if he can do anything that shows them he's got the potential to be a consistent NFL player, they will want to keep him on the roster because that size and speed doesn't come along very often. But he's on the bubble. And Isaiah Hodgins and Isaiah Nair are both on the bubble. Another guy on the bubble, another veteran, is Russell Gage Jr. And I could easily have put Russell Gage Jr. on the outside looking in, but when he has familiarity the way he does with Kyle Shanahan and the Shanahan system, he's a guy that is going to know where to be and what to do. I do believe that because the 49ers have a lot of receivers that are similar to him, it does put him in a bubble situation. And what you're going to get from him is consistency. And the 49ers like having veterans. They know what they're going to get, consistency from them. You look at a guy like Trent Taylor, that's part of the reason they brought him back last year, what he could do in as far as punts go. But also you knew if you put him in there, you were going to get a guy who understood his assignment and could go out there and do it. Was it going to be high-level performance, multiple catches, big-time plays? No. That's not what they were expecting. What they were expecting was a guy that was going to go get it done. That was kind of the same thing with Chris Conley. He would run the right routes. He would line up in the right space. He could make a catch or two if you needed him to. He would provide help on special teams. That's what the 49ers were looking for, was that steady type of player. So Gage is kind of in that category. Now let's talk about a couple of guys who are at the wide receiver position on the bubble that are a little bit more of a projection. And I'm going to start with Junior Bergen. And Bergen, I brought up that he's a Brant Boyer special. And this is a guy that's going to have to excel on special teams for them to take a really hard look at him on offense. And you might say, hey, what are you talking about? Well, Kyle Shanahan, when they asked him about Junior Bergen, he said, oh, yeah, we're going to throw him in with wide receivers. Part of the reason they said that is Bergen was kind of a unique prospect because at Montana, he played running back for a little bit. He played wide receiver. This is a former quarterback in high school, so he's got some versatility. So they're going to take a look at him and what he could do. I think he does display in his film some good traits that could translate to the NFL. But if he's going to make this team, he's going to show up and show out on special teams. He's going to get everyone's attention. He's going to be a guy that's a home run threat who could change field position. That's going to be the key. Then the 49ers will be willing to keep him and keep working on developing him at wide receiver. I think there's a lot of things that you possibly like, that running back part of his game, that yak potential. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he does act like a running back. He's a little bit of a playmaker. The vision you see on punts could make him a yak monster. But we haven't seen it consistently in college, and that's something the 49ers want to see. And how is it going to translate when you're going against the best competition? I think that's one of the keys as well. He's a 4.5 40 guy. Is that going to make a difference? It doesn't when you have elite vision, but that's something to remember when we're talking about Junior Bergen. So he's on the bubble. It comes down to special teams for him. And then Tariq Owens. And Owens was one of the most raw prospects I saw all last year. And I went out, and watched him at training camp. And you could just tell, I mean, the guy just needed some more development. Now, I will say this, from minicamp and what he did at minicamp, rookie minicamp, to what he did at training camp, it was a very good improvement. So he did improve in that short amount of time. So the optimism for Tariq Owens is there. And we talked about Isaiah Nayer and the size and the speed. That is something else you get with Tariq Owens. He's also taller and got some athleticism that you could be able to use him. So he's on the bubble, and I think he is in direct competition with Nayer and Hodgins. Those guys are kind of competing to potentially get off the bubble. But one spot remains potentially for these guys to make this roster, because I think the 49ers will likely keep 5 wide receivers with Demarcus Robinson and Brandon Ayuk being on, off the initial roster, 53-man roster for the PUP list and the exemption list. And they want to make sure that when they bring somebody back, they're not cutting a really good player. So that's my expectation right now. That could always change. They could keep 6 wide receivers, and maybe 2 of these guys make the team. Maybe that's how they keep Junior Bergen, to allow him to handle some of the special teams goals. But I think that that's going to be an interesting position, because there is a lot of bubble players going out there and competing. Now, offensive line is the next position I want to talk about, because there is a lot of competition and a lot of bubble teams. And there's some guys who have made the 49ers 53-man roster in the past that are now on the bubble. So you look at the roster, and we know Trent Williams, Ben Barge, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colt McKivitz. Those guys are going to be on this team. Then after that's where it gets a little bit more muddy. Now, guys on the outs that are not on the bubble, at least in my opinion, Zach Johnson, who they brought in during this offseason. I think he's on the outs looking in. Sebastian Gutierrez, Isaac Alarcon, Drake Nugent. I know a lot of people are high on Drake Nugent, but I think that he's really pigeonholed to just playing center. And so I think that they see him as continued development. The short arms don't allow him to play guard. So I think that he's on the outside looking in right now. And then you've got Drew Moss as well, the undrafted free agent. I've heard people say, hey, Drew Moss could make this team. He could have an opportunity. I think it's going to be very difficult with the players that are ahead of him. I think it's more likely Drew Moss is a practice squad player for the San Francisco 49ers. And I even think there's a chance he's not even a practice squad player, because they're going to have to decide between interior offensive lineman like Drew Moss or an interior offensive lineman like Drake Nugent, or even the rookie. And we'll talk about Connor Kobe in a second. But when you're looking at the 49ers makeup of their offensive line, they brought in Andre Dillard. They brought him in at, probably a month ago, and he's been dealing with an ankle scope. So we haven't got to see him on the field. We just know who he was playing, in the NFL. Last year he was with Green Bay. He's been with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we've seen some good things from Andre Dillard, a former first-round pick. But it's lacked consistency, and it's lacked the overall impact that everyone thought he was going to have when he came into the NFL. But he's hyper athletic. He fits the system to a T. But I don't think it's a guarantee he makes the team. I do think that they're looking at him, Spencer Burford, and Austin Pleasance as the swing tackle. Now, the way that this offensive line is going to be built, there are potentially 3 or 4 spots available for the 49ers to keep players. I think initially they'd like to keep 9 offensive linemen. I talked about the 5 starters already, which means those guys are on the team. So you could conceivably see the 49ers keep 2 offensive tackles, which we've seen Chris Forster and Kyle Shanahan elect to do over the last few years. A guy that normally fills in at left tackle and a guy that normally fills in at right tackle. And I think last year especially, you see Jalen Moore being able to handle that. Now, one of the interesting caveats the 49ers have right now with roster building is they're going through and putting Spencer Burford at tackle. Burford's been getting all the left tackle snaps. Of course, Dillard has been out, so it's allowed Burford those reps. Well, with that, Burford could be a guy that's not just a swing tackle, but can play 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. That versatility alone is something I think could help him make this football team. And I don't think they've given up on Spencer Burford. The things that Chris Verster's talked about over the years with Burford about his athleticism, the things that he can produce on the field, I think they're super high on him still. So you got Burford, you got Dillard, who just came in, and then you've got Austin Pleasance. And some of the conversation points and the emails that I get is that Austin Pleasance has been seen by some as a potential starter. I will say this. I see Austin Pleasance as a bubble player. I think that Dillard, Burford, and Pleasance are all bubble players. They're in a competition. There's a chance 2 of the 3 make the team. Which 2, I don't know. I think Burford is probably the leader in the clubhouse to make the football team because of the versatility. Anytime you have a utility offensive lineman that can play multiple positions, he's more valuable than somebody that's kind of locked in. And I say that because you have Dillard who can also play multiple positions. In fact, of the 3 guys, there's only one guy that doesn't play interior offensive line, and that's Austin Pleasance. He's the guy that's pigeonholed into playing tackle. Right now, he's been getting the reps at right tackle behind Colt McKivitz, and I think a lot of people keep looking for somebody to take Colt McKivitz's spot. I don't think it's Austin Pleasance. I think that just watching his film and what he's done on the other 6 teams that he's been a part of, I think you see inconsistencies, and I think that's going to hurt him. I think he's firmly on the bubble for this 49ers offensive line. I think Burford and Dillard are on the bubble as well. I think Burford has the best chance to get off the bubble and make this football team. Homegrown talent, lots of versatility, but Dillard as well, because Dillard has played offensive guard in the NFL. He's played offensive tackle, and he started a lot of football games. Whenever you have that, you're going to have an opportunity. So right now, I think those 3 guys are bubble players. They are in competition for potentially 2 tackle spots. One of them is going to be on the way out. And which one's it going to be? That's what's going to be interesting. Is it the new guy, Dillard? Is it the guy they brought in last year, Austin Pleasance? Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting conversation points about this offensive line is the bubble and who's going to end up making it. But I think it goes Burford, Dillard, Pleasance, and might surprise some people. But that's how I believe the pecking order is right now behind Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz. Now let's switch to the interior offensive line, where it gets just as convoluted because you have right now Ben Bart starting at left guard. And with that, you have a competition behind him to see who's going to be that swing interior offensive lineman. It's not as simple as let's keep a guy at guard, let's keep a guy at center, let's keep a guy at left guard, center, right guard, have a spot for all of them. You're not going to keep 10 offensive linemen when doing roster building. You would love that, right? You'd love to be able to keep one backup for each position. That way these guys could rotate through, just get practice consistently, being able to play those positions. But you can't do that, so you need versatility. And I've brought this up on a previous video, but the versatility the 49ers like to find first is a center guard combo. If you look back at the 2019 team, they had Ben Garland. He was a former player for Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. He came in, he was a center guard combo. You need him at center, he could do it. You need him at guard, he could handle it. In fact, he started the Super Bowl at center for the San Francisco 49ers. Then you look at what they did with John Feliciano. They brought him in, he had played center, he had played guard, and he became that center guard combo. Now we know eventually he took over the guard position heading into the Super Bowl in 2023. So you see that these guys have to play a pivotal role. Now the 49ers have a couple of guys that are up for that position. This is going to be one of the key battles, and these guys are bubble players because of it. The winner will likely make this football team. The guy who doesn't win this position could be off. And that's between Nick Zakelj and Matt Hennessy. Those guys are going to be in a firm battle for that swing center guard position. Now, Nick Zakelj has been drafted by the 49ers, and he has developed over the last couple of years. I think he's made a huge development from even 2023 to 2024, which I thought he really came into his own. He showed consistency at center where you were having bad snaps, whether it was under center or shotgun snaps. Those have kind of went away. And you've seen the consistency, and you've seen a guy that was able to stay healthy last year. And when he got his opportunity to play left guard, he played better than he had even in preseason, which shows a development through the year. Now, Nick Zakelj, I think, is more suited to play center than guard. But right now, the way that the team is built, I think he is the left guard behind Ben Barch, and maybe there's a little bit of competition there. I think they prefer Barch. He was more consistent last year. Zakel still is not consistent when it comes to run blocking. It's part of the reason I like him at center more. Less opportunities where you have to move someone off the ball by yourself. You get a lot of help. You work on going to the second level. I think those types of things lean more towards Zakel being successful. But in comes Hennessy, and the 49ers were very high on picking up Matt Hennessy. This is a guy that was a second round pick who has a lot of ability and the athleticism to play in the system. He played in the system at Atlanta. He started in the system at Atlanta. Now, of course, he lost his starting job and eventually he fell out of favor with the Atlanta Brass. They've had new coaching staff since he got drafted there, and he's on the open market. So he comes to the 49ers, and the thought process is originally from all of us that are watching, Matt Hennessy was a center in Atlanta. He's going to be a center for the 49ers. In fact, lots of us were hoping he's going to go compete with Jake Prendle. But then when the press conferences start to happen and they're asked about Matt Hennessy, Kyle Shanahan says he's going to be competing at guard. Well, the reason I think he says he's going to be competing at guard is because he's going to be competing for that swing position, that guy that can play guard and center. But they can't keep both of them. I mean, they could theoretically. I don't want to say they can't keep both of them because they could. They could easily keep Burford, and Dillard on the outside, and they could easily keep Zakel and Hennessy on the inside. That would give you 9 guys. That would definitely work. But if you do that, you are potentially cutting Connor Kobe. And Connor Kobe is not a guy, the 49ers' new draft pick out of Iowa. He's not a guy that will be able to play center initially. So you're not going to have Connor Kobe compete for this position. You're not going to have him step in and compete to be a center guard combo. He's just a guard, right? Dominic Pooney last year has the ability to play center, but he's just a guard right now. You can't learn multiple positions as a rookie. That makes it very difficult. So the 49ers have a decision here, and that's why I put Connor Kobe on the bubble. We seen them do this last year with Jared Kingston. Jared Kingston, drafted in the 7th round out of USC, a former tackle who moved inside to guard. 49ers really liked him, his athleticism, his strength, everything really was pretty good. And then he wasn't able to make the team. He ends up on the Carolina Panthers. They claimed him on waivers. So I think that Connor Kobe is on the bubble. Matt Hennessy and Nick Zakel. Those guys are on the bubble on the interior. I think Hennessy and Zakel have the inside track because of their potential to play guard and center. And we want Connor Kobe to make this team. We want him to be able to develop into a consistent player. But I think that's going to be one of the issues with the 49ers. And, I like the 49ers keeping most of their draft picks, but when you get to the 7th round, minus Curtis Rourke, who's probably going to start on the PUP list, I think Junior Bergen and Connor Kobe are on the bubble to make this football team. Let's switch to tight end, where there's 2 guys that we know are going to be on the team, Kittle and Luke Farrell. And then after that, it's a complete bubble, right? You brought in Ross Dwelley. You've cut him before. You've brought him back. You've put him on the practice squad. He's a bubble player. Braden Willis, last year you did waive him. He ended up on your practice squad before coming back to the 53-man roster. That's definitely a bubble guy. Jake Tunges last year made the initial 53-man roster for the 49ers, but really didn't do anything on the field. They never asked him to produce on the field. So I think he's firmly on the bubble this year. And Mason Pline, who we just haven't got to see the development. Not a lot of reps last year in preseason. We knew that he was a complete developmental player. So I think right now there is 4 guys on the bubble. And I think they're just going to wait this thing out. Let there be a competition between Dwelley, Willis, Tunges, and Pline, and just see who can win that 3rd tight end spot. And I think they brought in Ross Dwelley because special teams, number 1, but number 2 is a consistency. You know what you're going to get out of him. Is he the best blocker? No. Is he the most athletic? No, but he's going to make some catches. He understands this offense. And so I think that's part of the reason they brought him in. This is really the time for the young guys to step up. Willis, Tunges, and Pline, I mean, this is their opportunity, but they're all firmly on the bubble for the San Francisco 49ers. At quarterback, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, they're good. I think that Curtis Rourke is going to start on the PUP list, so we're just going to leave him off. No bubble for him. I think Tanner Mordecai, even though he's all by himself as potentially the third quarterback, could be on the bubble to make this roster. He has to convince the 49ers and convince the league that the 49ers can't just waive him and add him to the practice squad. He has to show up and show out. Now, I thought that there were things to like last year during preseason for Tanner Mordecai, but I don't know that the 49ers are completely sold on him. He has a good arm. He's athletic. The timing is some of the things that we need to see get a little bit better with him. So I think there's a chance Tanner Mordecai doesn't make the 49ers 53-man roster because of roster building reasons. You want to keep an extra defensive lineman. You want to keep an extra offensive lineman. All that plays into it. And with the 49ers having Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, the truth is, if you get to quarterback 3 and it's Tanner Mordecai, your chances of going too deep in the playoffs of the Super Bowl are not very good. And I know everyone always says, well, what about Brock Purdy? Tanner Mordecai and Brock Purdy are built different, right? They're just different types of players. Unless we see something really different from training camp from Tanner Mordecai, I think he's on the bubble to make this roster. Now at running back, we know McCaffrey, Juszczyk, Garendo, Jordan James, those dudes are going to make it for sure. But you keep 5 running backs normally. You want to make sure you have the depth. They add on special teams. You have Patrick Taylor Jr., who was on the 49ers last year. It was hit and miss, right? He was on the team, then he went to the practice squad, then he came back. You have Israel Abanikanda, who they added from the New York Jets. Last year, they claimed him on waivers, former 5th-round pick of the Jets. Robert Saleh, Brant Boyer from the Jets. They know who Abanikanda is and what he could provide. I do think he's a scheme fit, but he's got a lot to prove. And then you've got Corey Kiner from undrafted free agent this year. So Kiner, Abanikanda, and Patrick Taylor are all bubble players for the San Francisco 49ers this year. And you've got to decide, who wins. I think the 49ers are very high on Corey Kiner. I think that they would love for Corey Kiner to come in there and win this spot. We've seen them lose a guy like Schrader last year from allowing him to potentially, hit waivers, and the Rams picked him up. So they are going to worry about potentially losing a player like Corey Kiner, especially if he starts showing consistency throughout the preseason. Patrick Taylor Jr. is a guy that has been in the league long enough that you can cut him, you can release him, and you could bring him back to your practice squad. So there's always the possibility that makes it a little bit easier. With Abanikanda, he's another guy that could be claimed. It's all going to be coming down to it. I think that these 3 guys are bubble players, and they're competing for one spot. And I think it's going to be interesting because they all have different traits and different strengths. But each one of them are going to be expected to produce on special teams. Because when you are in the bottom end of the roster, especially at a running back position, you have to have something that's going to help you. Now, Patrick Taylor Jr. handled a lot of the kick return duties last year. He does a lot of dirty work. That could play in his favor. Abanikanda has showed that ability as well in college when he played at Pitt to be able to be a kick returner. If that's something that he could show, that could help him and give him an opportunity to make this team. And with Kiner, I think if he just shows consistency to play the way that they felt he was, because they had a draftable grade on him, I think that he's got a shot. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see which one of these bubble players make the team. So that is the offensive players on the bubble for the San Francisco 49ers. It's going to be a fun competition. I'm looking forward to getting even deeper into the intricacies of the competition of guys like Nick Zakelj versus Matt Hennessy and Spencer Burford versus Andre Dillard and Austin Pleasance. I think it's going to be fun conversations because each of them have strengths and weaknesses that could be beneficial to the 49ers. And those things we're going to be talking about as we build to the 49ers training camp and get it all set up so that when training camp and preseason comes, we know what competitions to watch. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.